Right, morning, welcome all. We're speeding into February, yeah. And I've got some speeding hardy-dahs in the background, which you can probably hear quite loudly and clearly. So, yeah, squadrons are flying around all over the place. And as my late father used to like to say, tempest fugits. So, yeah, who knows what's going to happen. I think time certainly seems to be moving faster and faster for me. I don't know about you guys. I always thought it was just relative. When you're 10, one year is 10% of your life. When you're 100, it's only 1% of your life. So, relatively speaking, it's going to go past a lot faster. Excuse me. But I don't think that's really what we're talking about this morning. I think, you're going to have to take over, Lee. I've got a tickle in my throat, so I'm going to have to speed off.
Yeah, so yeah, we're following on from looking at quick fixes yesterday, and just that word "quick" just stimulated this idea of well, what does it mean what does speed mean? What is it? And it was also came, and I've said this before, this interview with this young entrepreneur who, in giving advice to other startups and entrepreneurs, said it's about speed to action, action to speed, and then patience, and this sort of juxtaposition between these two things. And so the focus today being on, so what is good about speed, and what does it mean, and how do we, and are there some downsides to it as well? And I was just thinking, what do we mean by speed? And there's one, I just have a sort of one negative reaction, sort of like an instinctive feeling. You know that feeling when somebody stands behind you and watches you while you work? I don't know if that ever, you don't know that feeling. That is my absolute worst, is this being observed. I immediately freeze. I can't think. I don't know what I'm doing. I get confused, and my brain just goes literally into sludge. And sometimes I feel like that with this word speed. It's like, go faster, make it happen. And that this pressure of making things happen almost feels like that hovering presence. And it doesn't make me go faster. It has the opposite effect. So then I sort of have to rethink, so what does speed mean? And the image that is with me very strongly at the moment, because I'm doing some writing for one of my clients, writing an online course, and this particular topic was around efficiency. And I found this amazing YouTube clip of a pit stop, a Formula One pit stop in the 1950s. And at that stage, it was unbelievably fast. And they make you watch the entire pit stop of 67 seconds, which doesn't sound like a long time. But when you are watching somebody bang, bang, bang to get a wheel off, and bang, bang, bang to get another wheel off, 67 seconds is very long. And then you watch 67 seconds of that pit stop in the 1950s, and then you watch the 2013 Melbourne pit stop of Ferrari. 1.83 seconds. You don't even know what you're seeing. And it's speed, but it's elegance. It's finely tuned. It's choreography. It's each person having practiced and defined and clear about their role. They step in, they do their drill, or the next person comes in, they put in it's just this dance that is this intricate process that happens in an instant, because the purpose is clear, everybody's role is clear, and everybody comes together in the right place at the right time, and it happens so amazingly. And so I think that's just maybe where I just want to leave it. It's just that image of what stays in my mind in terms of what speed actually means. And yeah, I'm sure everybody else will have different ideas and opinions, and that's what Wisdom Chats is all about. So I look forward to hearing everyone.
Great, thanks, Lee. So we'll speed across to Jasper and see if he's fast asleep or fast awake this morning. So.
Well, you'll quickly find out. Now I think, well, the things that I can latch onto with what Lee said there is the speed, or the perspective of speed is all relative. So if a thing is enjoyable, it feels like it's flashing by, like, let's say, a nice day or a nice holiday. Whereas if you're into something that you really don't enjoy, a minute can feel long. So it's that thing. And as you were describing that, the exchange of a pit stop, I think we've all had some harrowing experiences where we were almost in an accident and everything happened in seconds, but in your mind, you can almost write a book on the frames as it flashes by second by second. But I think the only thing I wanted to latch onto is, in terms of her examples that's used there, it's what you described there is more about the team effort, the choreography of the team, everybody knowing its role, and how it's a massive improvement from 67 seconds to 1 point something seconds. But I think the beauty of that whole thing was that it was possible because of the team. And recently I watched the replay of the Rugby World Cup and the lead up to that, and the end game was a beautiful game to watch. But again, it was a team effort with a plan, with practicing and exercising. So I asked myself, how relevant is today's topic in terms of me as an individual and me in terms of a company? And I think individually, nobody can work. It doesn't matter if a person shouts and screams at you, you can't work harder and faster than you probably already do. And with that sort of pressure, you might even become less efficient. So I believe every person has found relatively early in his life a pace at which he can handle stuff. And every day has only got 24 hours for every person. So we find a pace that we can handle and sustain. But now comes the thing is, how can we now get more out of the time that we do? And that comes with each of us upskilling ourselves. Sorry.
Jasper's not very fast at switching off his phone. So
I'm definitely not quick at trying to get the right button to clean up the phone there. Yeah, so I think it's the individual challenge is always to say, especially as you get older, how can I be more productive and get more things done with the same time that I have and the same resources that I have? And that's like almost an eternal quest while we're here on Earth. And that's a combination of better networks, better team players around you, and better upskilling. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring in the idea of speed in context of the individual and speed in context of the team.
Great, thanks, Jasper. All right, Ed. Yeah. Obviously, when you're running long distance, speed doesn't really factor into it.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was listening to Lee and she was talking about speed and elegance, and they're not two words that have ever been used about my running. But I think it's interesting in running, isn't it? Because if you're running 100 meters, speed is very important. If you're running comrades, pace is much more important. you go too fast in the first half, you will really suffer in the second half. So it's not overall speed that's mattered, it's speed judgment that matters. But anyway, yesterday I got all excited about screen wash. And one of the things you use screen wash in your car for is to remove flies from your windscreen. You know, when you're driving along and you get loads of flies on your windscreen. And those flies really fascinate me, because at 1 minute, they're busy flying along at, say, I don't know, 10 kilometers an hour, and they meet your car windscreen, which is going along at 120 kilometers an hour in the opposite direction. So that fly goes from doing 10K, decelerates very fast on your windscreen to doing 0, and then accelerates to doing 120K. But at the point it's doing 0, it's stuck to your windscreen. So why isn't your windscreen doing 0 miles an hour? That's always fascinated me, that thing. And I'm sure it's something to do with speed is actually a measurement of something that we get confused, because there's also velocity, which brings in direction. And I think it's important we think about direction as well, because if we're speeding off in the wrong direction, not the best thing to do. Yeah. And then I think also it's a question of balance. Jasper mentioned yesterday that he's learning French on Duolingo. Well, I'm also learning Spanish on Duolingo. And part of the sort of exercise, they have a native speaker will say a phrase, and you have to type it down in Spanish. And fortunately, and the Spaniards roll their words together. It's very difficult when you're a beginner to understand what they're saying. So they give you this little function that slows the speech down. And then you've got more of a chance. But of course, if you keep slowing the speech down, one, it makes the lesson very long. And two, you'll never ever get to learn to understand a Spanish person. So there's this balance between, you know, because if you don't slow the speech down, you get it wrong and you don't learn anything, and you have to repeat the lesson, and it takes forever to do your Spanish lesson. So I think it's always a question of balance, isn't it? Of getting the balance right. And that made me think about my mountain biking days. I was never very good at mountain biking because I'm too scared of going down hills and falling off. But you need speed to take you over the obstacle. Too little speed, you hit the obstacle, you fall off. Lee's just stolen my thunder with what she's put in the chat, but never mind. But too much speed, and you come off the bike as well. So it's getting that balance right. And there's lots of expressions around speed, aren't there? Like fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Marry in haste, repent in leisure. And then there's Lee's mum's great statement, less haste, more speed. And it's interesting actually, because the original statement was the other way around. More haste, less speed, but it works both the same ways, doesn't it? Because it means the same thing both ways around. And my ex-wife's stepmother used to sort of paraphrase it by saying panic less quickly. I don't say panic more slowly, but which I think is a good way. And that's the key thing, isn't it? Is to get that whole balance right, that yes, you need to, in business, perhaps be quick off the mark, but not too quick, that you haven't seen the problems. But you don't want to be too slow that that obstacle becomes something that then derails you, like in the mountain biking world. And then Lee also threw in there the thing about patience. And I think it is act quickly, but don't expect the results quickly necessarily. It's like in my Spanish, you know, I have to get used to learning to hear that quickly but I'm not going to learn Spanish by tomorrow. In fact, I'm now on a 44-day streak, I think it is. But yeah, so I think those are all my thoughts around around speed, except for the thing that Jasper raised about relative. There's a run I've done quite a few times, and I remember one time it was snowing, and that really slowed me down. And I love those sort of conditions. So I did that run, and it took me forever. But I then did it maybe about 2 or 3 weeks later with a friend of mine who's much faster than I am. And I was trying to keep up. And, you know, my lungs were on fire, my legs were on fire. It hurt like hell. And it seemed to take as long as the time when I enjoyed it in the snow. But I was going slower in the snow, and I was going much faster with my friend, yet my perception of how long that run took was exactly the same. So yeah, I think it depends on what's going on and what we think about speed. It's like if you're sitting on a park bench chatting to a pretty young lady, time sort of you know, kind of stands still a bit, doesn't it? But there you go.
Great, thanks, Ed. I think I'm probably not going to try running an ultra marathon in the snow, but who knows? You know, with the weather around here at the moment, you know, you never can tell. Although we do have some sun again, briefly for today, after I think almost a couple of weeks without it, and very unusual in this part of the world. So I know somebody in my family is going to be speeding out into the sun. So, but Trevor, where's your place in the sun?
Well, I was just so pleased to hear old Ed. He thrown in some comments, and I quickly went to my dictionary, but he corrected himself. But I'm going to hold on to that because I've got Ed now. Listen, I think this topic is about life is about 2 sides of the same coin. You know, I'm married to a person who's all about balance. And struggles to take decisions. And I'm the other side of that. I take a decision. It's simple as that. And I think this topic of speed today has been something that we've been really talking about for at least the last 25 years, especially with the internet coming to fruition in our time, that speed is absolutely critical. I remember a book by Ricardo Semler. He was a Brazilian manufacturer who brought speed into his process. So I can't remember the book title, Lee, you might be able to remember it. But I was just thinking some of these stories about Ed turning around and saying, listen, on a mountain bike, it's about speed and balance and control. When we were out on the ski slopes for the first time as a South African, we didn't have that. So when I hit these slopes, man, I couldn't stand up on those blooming skis because they took us to the gentle little slopes to teach you how to stand up. And it took me about 2 days to stop falling off these blooming skis until I discovered what the problem was. I needed to be on the black slopes. The steeper the blooming thing and the more speed I had, the better it was. Then I could stand up. But heaven help anybody in front of me because it was kamikaze stuff. But it was only speed that allowed me to actually conquer the skis. And I think what today is about is I put a note there that I think speed requires decision-making skill and it requires capability, or just chutzpah, to be quite honest. So I think when you talk of these F1 guys who are in the pit stops there, the pit crews, the reason that they are so successful is precisely what Lee identified. They are so practiced. They are so honed to perfection. And I think today, the speed is about understanding the basics, that everything is about basics, that you only need 1, 2, or 3 basics to almost conquer almost everything that you want to do. And for me, everyone knows that I focus on the basics. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. What are the simple 1, 2, 3? Next, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's not just because I'm simple-minded. It's because everything that I've done in the long time that I've been on this planet, I've noticed that if you can quickly get to what the most successful people are doing, you don't have to do what all the college professors tell you to do over 7 to 8 years of academic training. You just have to find out what the most successful people are doing, follow the simple 1, 2, 3 things that they do, and you've almost conquered any particular topic, subject, or skill that you need to actually conquer. And then you can add, you can fill in the small bits afterwards. If you are relaxed, which, by the way, is the opposite side of the coin to speed, and that is relax. Just be patient. As they said in our army days, and we said it yesterday, hurry up and wait.
I'm waiting. All right. So speed. Yeah, it is a fascinating topic because, you know, as things get faster, they actually slow down. So I think it comes back to being relative. You know, if you think about you think about cricket, for example, you know, I think some people might be playing it this morning, not very well from some continents, but you know, we'll have to see how that one pans out over the next couple of days. But you know, you got somebody facing a bowler at 150 kilometers an hour. You know, for somebody who's completely untrained in facing that environment, that's an incredibly you know fast cricket ball to face. So you know, even the slow bowlers at test level sometimes bowl over 100 kilometers an hour, and for an amateur cricket player, that's probably still a pretty quick ball to face. But as you practice against those kind of speeds and become accustomed to it, you know, it starts becoming manageable, and actually you can work with it. And I've seen the same kind of thing in computer games, that sort of as you go up the levels, they get faster and faster. And when you start off the game at the slowest level, you know, it seems quite difficult to actually keep up with the necessary movements and the speeds that are required at those early levels. But as you play it more and more, you know, you get to a point where you're actually quite comfortable with high speed. So I think conditioning and practice absolutely plays a role in the familiarity with speed, and depending on what you're doing. You know, it's interesting. I mean, I've been writing computer programs for close on 40 years. So, you know, the one day Lee spoke about somebody looking over your shoulder while you're working. The one day I was working at a client, and they'd asked me to sort something out for them, and this lady was standing looking over my shoulder while I was modifying and changing the program. And when I finished, she said, "Yes, I can't believe how fast you type." And I mean, I'm not a touch typist, even after 40 years of working on a keyboard, but I do use more than 2 fingers at times. But you know, and again, you know, you're writing, you talk about foreign languages. I mean, computer programming languages are foreign to many people, but it's almost become second nature. You know, to me, when I'm writing a program, I think in the language of the program, and I'd probably write a program as fast as some people might be able to type a letter. So, you know, it's an interesting adaptation that we have as part of the human DNA. I think is this ability to adapt as we become more practiced and more proficient in whatever it is that we do. You know, I think of the accountants of the old days, Ed. You know, run your fingers down a telephone book and just add up the numbers as you go. You know, ask the average Joe to do that, and they'll be lost after line 2. You know, You know, my father-in-law was one of those sort of accountants as well. You know, very quick on the numbers and adding and things like that. And it's simply practice at the end of the day. So yeah, what's fast for one might be slow for another, and vice versa. So what is speed really? Yeah, it's an interesting question, and you know, Trevor talks about taking decisions instantly. You know, I mean, that's a lifetime of practice as well. I think you know, he's been in that mode since a fairly early age, and it's become second nature. Whereas procrastinators, you know, might really struggle with those sorts of things because they've just never got into the situations where they've been forced to take decisions. I suppose sometimes taking no decision is taking a decision in its own way as well. So yeah, calculators are an interesting thing. And I mean, if you saw the bits I posted at the top about the speed of computers and how that's accelerated, everybody's heard of Moore's law, I'm sure, of these in this day and age. And originally it was a 2-year cycle of doubling in speed and halving in price, and I think it's down to 6 months, or it was down to 6 months at one stage, and then they started hitting the limits of the technology that was enabling that, and now we've leapfrogged over it again. You know, with the advent of supercomputers and quantum computing and things like that. So the acceleration is just dramatic. And I've watched an interesting chat by Peter Diamandis, one of Trevor's favorites, where he talks about, you know, the ability of the human mind actually works linearly, is that the word? In a straight line, effectively. Whereas everything else around us at the moment is actually increasing exponentially. And it's how do we actually keep up mentally with these rapid changes that are happening around us all the time? I mean, I actually just found it here. So he talks about predicting exponential growth is not intuitive. You know, if you it's easy to predict where you end up after 30 linear steps. You're more or less 30 meters away, but 30 exponential steps, you'll be 1 billion meters away. You know, so in 30 exponential steps, you'll circumnavigate the Earth 26 times, and things are growing exponentially at the moment. And so the real question is, how do we keep up? How do we adapt and actually manage to adapt in this rapidly increasing environment, environment that's increasing in speed rapidly around us? And I mean, I've seen it with my kids. You know, at 17 or 18, they were saying they couldn't believe how fast time is going. I remember at 17 or 18 a year, it was, you know, a huge amount of time. You know, and you've got to think when the youngsters are saying that time is flying, you know, something has changed. You know, do we really realize what has changed around us that is making things just move faster and faster? So yeah, fascinating topic for me. But I think that's my little piece on this one, Lee. So back to you. And I don't want to challenge Taylor with her abacus. She was calculating into the trillions at 7 or 8, if I remember correctly. So on an abacus, I don't think I could even count the beads on the abacus, never mind use it to calculate any numbers. But
well, Edward, I'm going to blame you for this, just in a little story, that I've never sat here before with so many flies, and I've literally had a fly sitting on my laptop for the last 5 minutes, which is a very long time for a fly.
I thought you were just waving at me to tell me to shut up, please.
You can tell I was just trying to get the flies away, and then I thought, no, okay, I'll leave you there. You're not bugging me, but really.
You need a spider to take the fly away.
And I've got plenty of those, so they're obviously not doing their job very well, or they're full already. Thanks. But I was going to open it up to the group, but Ivan stimulated something for me, and I'm interested to hear what everybody else says. This idea of our mind works linearly, but in actual fact, personal growth does not happen in a line. what we've discovered is that it is also you sit at a certain level, and then there's a thought or an idea or a process or an event or an experience leapfrogs you forward, and you suddenly go exponential growth at a period of time, and then you plateau, and then you go up again. So I'd be interested to hear your ideas around personal growth, and how does it happen? How do you see it happening in your own life, and what can we learn about personal growth from research? So let's have that conversation tomorrow.
Great, thanks, Lee. Thanks, everybody. See if you can find 100 monkeys to help you with that one before tomorrow. And other than that, maybe you'll have a spurt in your personal growth between now and tomorrow morning. But either way, have a good day. Try not to do it too fast. Sit back, relax, enjoy the sunshine if you have it, and have a good one. Cheers now.